This is John Howell Essential Cuts, your daily rundown of the best from today's show on 890 WLS.
Well, red flag fire warnings are back on Maui today, and there's a lot of growing anger over the return to school and the plans they have. Let's go to Alex Stone. He's out in Los Angeles, joining us on the Magic Box with the latest. First, are they really worried about additional wildfires in Maui today?
Well, they are, yeah. Conditions, John, today are similar to what they dealt with a couple of weeks ago when everything broke out. Not quite as bad, but 50-mile-an-hour winds. It is dry. The humidity levels are really low. It is warm. So you put all of those together and you get a red flag fire warning, which is what they had a couple of weeks ago and what you see in California and Oregon, a lot in Nevada, where the conditions are then explosive and they worry about it. So you can imagine not just Maui, but any of the Hawaiian Islands, that when you're told that today is going to be explosive fire behavior based on what went on over the last couple of weeks, that people are not too relaxed today. It's on the leeward side of the islands, the western side of the islands that they're worried about. Kauai, actually, the island of Kauai, is doing what Maui is criticized for not doing and what Hawaii in general has never done, but California now does, where they shut off the electricity preventatively. Kauai is doing that today, saying they don't want another Maui. So people are losing their electricity because it is windy. They'll turn it back on later tonight when the winds die down, but they're worried about what today is going to bring.
How are the recovery efforts continuing?
Well, they're trying to figure out moving forward now, and there's a lot of angst in numerous ways, getting people back in to get back to their property, allowing people to freely move around the Lahaina area. So far, they can't do that. The EPA is removing hazardous chemicals. The Army Corps of Engineers is going to deal with the removing of debris. Then it even comes down to getting back to school. School was in session, even though the kids were kept at home on the day of the wildfire because of the wind. And now there are a lot of schools around Lahaina that did not burn, and they're trying to figure out how do they move forward. And some parents want the kids back sooner. Some want them back later. They want more testing done to make sure it's safe. And the head of education saying this at a pretty contentious public meeting last night.
It's important that we get the full range of data and assessments for soil quality, because health and safety is very important.
They want to do soil testing, air testing. Some parents are saying enough. The schools are fine. They need to get back. Others are saying, no, not enough. Do more. And they want other things. They want more transparency. They want more say in moving forward with school. The other thing is a lot of kids have left. They are no longer on Maui. They've gone elsewhere.
Some students have transferred out of Maui to other schools in the state, and some students and families have moved to the mainland.
That they have left and gone to the continental U.S. and just gotten out of Maui. So they got to figure out where all the students are. Are they safe? Did they make it through the wildfire? Are they on another island? Are they in the continental U.S.? So they got a lot to figure out. They're looking at probably school resuming in West Maui at the end of September-ish, maybe beginning of October. And for some parents, too soon. Others, not soon enough.
Have they updated the number of those killed in the inferno?
It's at 115, and it's been that way for about a week now, and they are done searching. The search is over. The cadaver dogs are done. They're going home. They searched yesterday just to make sure to quell rumors on the island. The people were dead in the water. FBI dive teams went in. They didn't find anybody. In fact, we just got an update a few minutes ago that they are still at 100% search now and 115 bodies.
Not to put you on the spot, do you have a ballpark number of acres that were consumed by that fire?
Yeah, it was about 2,200, I believe. It was like 2,145, somewhere around there. It was a small wildfire. 2,000 acres is not a wildfire that anybody would ever remember typically. It is where this one burned, and that it went right through Lahaina in that moment with the wind pushing it. Normally, we're talking about big wildfires that are 200,000 acres, 400,000 acres. Those are the big ones that do a lot of damage. 2,000 acres is nothing, but it happened to be the exact town of Lahaina.
And you're at 115 right now, but let's be honest, we expect that to be in the hundreds by the time this is all done.
Maybe.
I mean, it's in the hundreds.
They don't know.
I'm
I mean,
talking,
they're, that's what they thought it was going to be. And the governor a week ago said that it was going to skyrocket as they did more searching. They're done searching now, and they didn't find anybody else. They do believe that there are going to be people like 9/11 who they never found, but they also just assume were dead in there. I'm sure they will find more remains in some places where they searched and they didn't find them, cadaver dogs, or in areas of town that they didn't search because they didn't think anybody would be there. So it'll probably at least go up a little bit over time, but 115 is kind of where they think they are right now.
Wow, I guess that's good news.
Which is a terrible number, but it's a lot better than they thought it might be.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Alex.
You got it. Thanks, John.
Take care. Alex Stone in Los Angeles reporting for ABC on the red flag fire warnings again on Maui and the discussion over returning the kids to schools.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Reading from Block Club Chicago, Mina Bloom wrote this. Instead of raising menu prices, restaurants all across Chicago have started adding surcharges onto their bills. Well, they've been adding them since the pandemic to cover things like delivery fees, employee health care, and masks. The practice was well understood as a response to the acute economic pressures and public health dangers that defined the early days of the pandemic, spring of 2020. But years later, as much of life has returned to normal, the surcharges haven't gone away. Let's start there with Mina Bloom, who joins us now from Block Club Chicago on WLS. Well, Mina, first question is an obvious one. Why haven't they gone away?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. The surcharges, like you said, have not gone away. In fact, they're really only becoming more common. If you go out to eat in Chicago lately, your bill can kind of resemble a CVS receipt. There's a lot of charges there, and there's usually a service charge, sometimes 3%, sometimes 5%, or even as high as 25%. And I talked to a lot of restaurant owners and workers in the city who said, look, we're charging these extra fees to survive. It's gotten more expensive to run a restaurant in Chicago, partly because of inflation and because of the pandemic. And there's also just a new attitude around worker pay. Restaurant owners really want to make sure that their workers are paid fairly, paid well. And so you're seeing a lot of restaurant owners say, I need the consumers to help me pay my workers what they deserve to be paid. So we're seeing a lot of this across the board, and it's only becoming more popular as time goes on.
So are they trying to do this to muddy the waters? Because this doesn't go to the servers. This goes to the restaurant. In other words, why don't they just raise the price on the menu? Or are they trying to say, look, credit card processing fees, this, that, and the other, it's all killing us, and we want to give you the details?
So it's all of the above. There's no, standard for how to do this. And so some restaurants are charging usually 3% extra fees to cover the credit card processing. Other restaurants are charging upwards of 20-25% to pay their back-of-house employees better. And then, there are other restaurants that are charging more to offset operational costs, which have gone up. So it's really all of the above. Restaurant owners are just in this tough position where they are saying, look, we don't have the money to put into the restaurant, and we need to pass that on to the consumer.
Well, we're all getting sticker shock because a hamburger shouldn't cost $20, even in Chicago.
Right, and like you said, I mean, a lot of people are wondering, hey, why don't restaurants just raise the prices? That seems like it makes the most sense. And there's a big reason why owners aren't doing that. It's because really research shows that people pick which place to eat based on how expensive it is. And so if a restaurant raises its price for a burger from $15 to $20, then they might be driving away customers that way. So they feel like it's actually more transparent to say on the menu, we're charging a 20% service fee, and that money is going towards our back-of-house employees directly. They feel that makes that, again, is more transparent and makes more sense.
I thought that, the servers were supposed to share that with the back-of-house employees. Mina Bloom is here, Block Club Chicago. Frustrations mount over restaurant surcharges, but the owners say the fees are necessary for survival and probably here to stay. Can you give us a quick 30 to 40-second tutorial on the legislation that our senior senator, Dick Durbin, has introduced in D.C.?
Yeah, so Dick Durbin, like you said, is introducing legislation that would help fix our credit card processing problem that we have. So right now, restaurants have to pay a lot of money to process credit cards. And, we all use credit cards when we go out to restaurants. So this is a really widespread issue. It impacts not just restaurants. It impacts merchants of all kinds, shops, all over. And so Dick Durbin, he's introduced this bill, and it's called the Credit Card Competition Act. And essentially, it requires big banks to work within smaller networks. And it's really designed to increase the competition and drive down those high swipe fees. So we will see what happens with this legislation. I know Sam Toya with the Illinois Restaurant Association said, that this is a great piece of legislation. It's very needed, but also we're up against the big banks, so we're not sure if it's going to make it through or not.
And for people who want to check this out, some frustrated Chicagoans recently have created a Chicago restaurant surcharge offenders list. There's the names and addresses of 140 restaurants and restaurant groups that charge service fees. I haven't looked at that yet, but I imagine I recognize some of those names, right, Mina?
Yeah, you will recognize a lot of names on there. This is a growing list that anyone can add to. It's really just in response to all of the surcharges that we're seeing at restaurants across the city. And people really want sort of more transparency around these fees. And so on this spreadsheet, you'll see, the name of the restaurant, the address, but also the reason for the surcharge.
Yeah.
It's really in an effort for more transparency.
And then we have the whole tipping issue because we're about to raise the minimum wage for servers way north, which restaurant owners are concerned about, and then also makes the servers concerned that people are not going to tip them 15 or 20 or 25%. So around and around we go. It's a delicate business, isn't it, Mina?
That's exactly right. I think there are a lot of questions swirling around, and the challenges that restaurants face are not going away anytime soon.
Mina, we'll read more at blockclubchicago.org. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
This is John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
On a Thursday or a Friday, during this segment after the 5:30 news, I like to talk about food. Remember Steve Dahl, Hall of Famer? He could talk about food for 4 hours. He actually could talk about fish tacos for 4 hours. I'm not that talented, but I can spend a segment here talking about Polish sausage. I always, when I open up my Chicago Tribune, I check and see if Nick Kindelsperger has written anything that particular day. This guy has a nice gig. Gets to go to the best restaurants in town, and he also goes to mom and poppers, like hot dog stands and little neighborhood joints. And then he writes about it, and I'm sure he gets reimbursed. I would hope so. I mean, I hope he gets a salary and he gets reimbursed. If he's just getting reimbursed, that may be a problem, but we'll set that aside. Anyway, this caught my eye and my taste buds. The best Maxwell Street Polish sausages in Chicago. Finding a great Polish sausage in Chicago, well, it's comically easy, so writes Nick. Explaining precisely what a Chicago-style Polish sausage is takes a little more time. All right, Nick, as Chet used to say, your dime, your dance floor, let's start there. What's your criteria for a Chicago-style Polish sausage?
So a it's usually called a Maxwell Street Polish sausage here, and it's usually a mix of beef and pork. So more traditional style Polish sausages are usually all pork or maybe some veal involved. But in Chicago, we like eating our Polish sausages on buns, so we need something a little more forceful to fight through the bread. And so there's usually, like a mix of pork and beef, and then a lot of garlic to really bring it home.
As you wrote this, basically started over 100 years ago. I like the history lessons in your columns. In 1928, we had over 400,000 Polish residents in the city, about 15% of the total population. Culinarily speaking, did the Polish residents, the immigrants, did they have outsized influence on what we ate in Chicago even over 100 years ago?
You know, they were just opening businesses to serve sort of their own communities. So a place like Slakowski's opened in 1918 to sort of serve, you know, the big Polish wave that was coming into Chicago. And it took sort of an outside force to kind of get those kind of Polish sausages to the masses of Chicago. That person was Jim of Jim's Original. And he wanted to create a sausage that would be sort of similar to a hot dog, but bigger and more flavorful. So he went and asked Slakowski's to make him this kind of sausage. So it's kind of a blend of a really beefy Chicago hot dog and then sort of old world Polish sausage. And as soon as Jim put it on the menu, it was a huge hit. It was such a hit that, you know, his shop was originally on Maxwell Street. And so then the Polish sausage became known as a Maxwell Street Polish sausage because it became so tied to that market, which at the time was the largest outdoor market in the city, and some people say actually in the whole country at that point.
I remember the one that was on Halstead Maxwell Street. I ate there many, many times.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was a little shack, but man, it was amazing. And, you know, it's so great. It's great even now to this day, even when it's along, you know, right by the interstate, because they just go through so many sausages each day. Like, you never have to worry about their product getting old or just sitting around too long. They are pumping them out.
Are kielbasas the same thing as a Maxwell Street Polish?
So kielbasa just means sausage in Polish. So there are many different kinds of kielbasa. So if you walk into a real deal Polish sausage shop like Kowalski's or Andy's Deli, you'll find dozens, if not many dozens, of different kinds of kielbasa. And, you know, some that are fresh sausages, some that have been smoked twice, you know. So Polish sausages is a whole realm that I need to learn more about. I definitely don't feel like an expert yet. But the Maxwell Street is, yeah, like I said, sort of that mix between a hot dog and a more traditional kielbasa. That would be a dried and smoked kielbasa.
All right, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. I always ask you for the best of whatever we're talking about. So in your opinion, Nick Kindelsperger, Chicago Tribune food critic, what are your favorite Maxwell Street Polish sausages in the city or surrounding suburbs?
Well, you have to start with Jim's Original. It's the original, and it's the best. You know, you just bite into one of those, and the casing just snaps, and then you're flooded with all of this incredible juicy sausage that's a little spicy, a little aggressive. You know, you usually have yellow mustard on there, and then deeply caramelized onions that are soft and a little sweet. And then, you know, a little sport pepper or pickled chili on top. Actually, I don't think they're sport peppers there. I think they're more like serranos. So they're a little longer and a little spicier. The sport peppers on hot dogs are smaller and a little milder. But yeah, no, you can't beat Jim's Original. I know that there's, Express Grill, which is next to it. That was actually started by Jim Stefanovich's, one of his cousins or nephews. And there's a little animosity in the family about it to this day, but they've basically worked through it. But Express Grill is still pretty good, but Jim's Original is always on the mark.
The one on South Union is the original. Is the one on North Elston as good?
I haven't actually been to the one yet on Elston. though I know it looks to be the same. And I talked to the current owner, and he said it's all the same stuff. So have to hear from your listeners to see if it still holds up.
We will ask our listeners as to their favorite Maxwell Street Polish. One or two others quickly before we run out of time. Who do you like?
Oh, I love Lasik Deli. So this is an amazing place in Norwood Park. They actually make their own Polish sausage from scratch. It's connected to Harjak's Sausage Company, which has been open since the early 1950s. They deep fry the Polish to get it a real crisp casing. Excellent stuff. And then another great place is Fixing Frank's, which is a little hot dog shop that's located inside certain Home Depot locations.
Home Depot?
Yeah. They're getting their sausages from Mikowski Sausage Company, which is this amazing Polish sausage company based in Bridgeport. So not every Home Depot, but a lot of them, I think it's in 17 Home Depot locations scattered around the city and suburbs. They are serving excellent locally made sausage, and their Polish sausage is pretty great.
That is a great endorsement, Nick. Thank you very much for your time. You make me very, very, very hungry every time I talk to you, especially this time of day. What's your next piece in the Chicago Tribune? And does the Tribune reimburse you for all the money you spend sampling all this great food?
Oh, yeah. I have all of these receipts that I have to scan and put it into the system. I make sure to pay for everything that I do. So don't worry about that. The Tribune is taking care of me in that respect.
I look forward to reading your next piece. Thanks a lot, Nick. Have a great evening.
Yep. Take care.
I'm Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. Yeah, that's me.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Do you think we should have mandatory maximum age limits for some elected offices? You have to be 35 to run for president, obviously. I think vice president, too. But at this point, watching what we're watching on a more frequent basis, and I watched Mitch yesterday and I watched the president today, I got to tell you, these two guys, thank you for your service. Time to go. Should we have mandatory maximum age limits for some elected offices? Today I was watching the president. He, as Kim reported, he showed up at FEMA, and he looked tired, and he was very slurry, and he went off prompter. Again, just give him his remarks, stick to the remarks, and just deliver them with some vigor, stamina, and don't say anything else. But then he took a few questions from the press, and he did compliment, not exactly compliment, but he gave McConnell a bit of political cover, saying, look, I've known people that have suffered from concussions previously. I talked to Mitch today. He's the same old Mitch. He's going to be just fine. But, of course, that's an 80-year-old sticking up for an 81-year-old, red or blue. I get the motivation there. Here's the question and the president just from about 90 minutes ago.
Spoken to Leader McConnell?
Yes, I have. I spoke to Mitch. He's a friend, and I spoke to him today, he was his old self on the telephone, having a little understanding of dealing with neurosurgeons and people, and one of the leading women in my staff, her husband's a neurosurgeon as well. It's not at all unusual to have the response that sometimes happens to Mitch when you've had a severe concussion. It's part of the recovery. And so I'm confident he's going to be back to his old self.
So that was nice of him to say. Like I said yesterday, I received a lot of vicious emails and some vicious voicemails. I think that Biden's a pretty good guy. Seems like a genuinely good guy to me. Yeah, his son is a disaster. I get it. And who knows what's going on. We'll find out. But he seems like a genuinely good guy, as in comparison to some other politicians. But he's too old to stand for re-election. I just wonder if they have some sort of plan that they've not yet shared with me. I was watching CNN when he was speaking. I thought, geez, he's drifting today. He's every day of his 80 there. Not that 80-year-olds don't have good judgment. I get that. They do. Okay? So do 77-year-olds. Well, some don't, but some do. But the point is, it's too tough of a job for somebody that age, period. So I was watching CNN. They came right out of Biden at FEMA with a discussion on the age of, the sweet spot for American presidents. And they had David Shalyan on, talking about a couple of polls. I pulled that for you. It sounds like this.
There was a poll about a year ago from CBS YouGov that asked Americans, should there be a maximum age set for somebody to hold a leadership position like this? Look at this, Brianna. 73% of Americans in that poll said, yes, there should be a maximum age limit. We know the Constitution sets a minimum age limit to run for Congress or the Senate or the presidency, but 3/4 of Americans think there should be a maximum age limit. And then there was a Pew Research poll that asked about what you think the right age is to serve as president. Ideal age for president here. Look where their plurality is. 49% of Americans say in your 50s is the ideal age for president. As somebody who just turned 50, Brianna, I take that positively.
I'm in my 40s, and that just feels still very young to me.
That seems very young to me. 50s. Anyway, should we have mandatory maximum age limits for some elected offices, in particular presidents?
John Howell, Essential Cuts. Check back every weekday for another episode of John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.